Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Rotunda Report on video. I'm Cale. Last edition we talked about state senate elections, and in this edition we're going to talk about state assembly elections for this fall. It's always important to look back at where the current composition is as we move forward through the fall election cycle, and Republicans have held a substantial majority in the state assembly since 2010. This last year, they held 63 seats in comparison to 34 seats for the Democrats. There are currently 2 vacant seats, but those were held by Democrats before the resignation. Things to consider as we talk about assembly elections: they are for 2-year terms. All 99 members are up for election every 2 years. And again, the GOP's had substantial control of the assembly since the 2010 elections. A number of retirements are coming up in the assembly for this upcoming election cycle. A number of the individuals at the bottom have either run and were elected to new positions or are running for new positions in this upcoming election. Things to watch, much like the Senate side, things to watch for this upcoming year include, this upcoming fall include the impact of COVID, which we talked about in the Senate elections. Obviously, there's an economic issue there. Will there be additional outbreaks? And then just generally how the election will be conducted, either through vote by mail or in person. Top of the ticket remains an important aspect for elections in Wisconsin, especially when it's a presidential year. Wisconsin still is a very purple state, but we have a number of areas that are very red and very blue. And then finally, the GOP, much like the Senate, is looking for a veto-proof majority. They'll need to get 3 additional seats to get to that from their current 63, so we'll need to get to 66. A little bit different than the Senate elections, though. There'll be a number of suburban areas and rural areas that will be really highlighted as we discuss the seats to watch. And then finally, with COVID, it's even more important in the assembly than in any other race because it's so localized as how they'll be able to run their campaigns, whether they'll be out doing doors, how they will be able to reach their voters without things like county fairs or parades. So because, again, the assembly is a localized race, much smaller in terms of trying to meet your voters, COVID will have a big impact on that. Seats to watch, these are listed in terms of numerically going from the lowest assembly district to the highest. Assembly District 13 is currently held by Representative Rob Hutton. It's typically a seat that Republicans would consider safe in the past elections, but it became competitive in 2018. Previous to that, 2016, the incumbent was unopposed. And this is really a focus from Democrats and others looking at the suburbs of Milwaukee that have slowly started. Both the demographics have changed, and also this is where we talk a lot about suburban women voters. Some of those have been particularly turned off by President Trump. So if you look at a seat just to the north of that, which is Assembly District 14. This was a seat where Democrat Representative Viney won the seat. It was an open seat in 2016. It was a very, very close race, just over 100 votes separated Representative Viney from the opponent. And again, this seat very much mirrors the 13th Assembly District. 4 years ago, this would have been, again, considered a very safe GOP seat, but demographic changes and national politics have put these suburban Milwaukee seats a little bit more in play. Another suburban Milwaukee seat just to the north side towards River Hills is the 23rd Assembly District, held currently by Representative Jim Ott. Again, very close race in 2018. And has those similar patterns as the other 2 Milwaukee area districts in those suburban areas. Then we're going to shift a little bit to a district that's a little more rural. This is the 51st Assembly District held by Representative Novak. This has been on really the top of the list for Democrats to try and flip for a number of years. This would be the Spring Green, Dodgeville, Mineral Point area. Top of the ticket Democrats do very, very well in this district, but in this particular case, it hasn't trickled down ballot. This was a very close race previously. Typically an area that's trended blue, but again, down ballot, GOP representatives have done well, from Representative Novak to also former Representative Markline, who's now a senator, represents the Senate side of this assembly seat. And then we shift a little bit more north to the Superior area, going south. The Assembly District 73, been held by a Democrat many, many years. It's been considered a long-term Democratic seat. But like the Milwaukee suburbs, which we talked about being maybe an area where Democrats are looking at to gain traction, the GOP on the other side, in order to increase the map and competitiveness, is looking at changes that have occurred in rural voting areas. So they're, again, trying to open that map to get to 66 seats to get that veto-proof majority. An important thing here, the seat's been unopposed for a number of election cycles, and at least the last 4 election cycles, there hasn't been an opposition here. So it'll be unique to see how both sides handle this very large district and how they reach voters. Then moving just a little to the east, the Assembly District 74 is another seat that Republicans are likely targeting. Again, currently held by a Democrat and has been a long-term Democrat seat for many, many years. And really, in order to get to that veto-proof majority, the GOP is going to have to likely flip 1 or 2 of the 73rd and the 74th seat, which is why there's going to be quite a bit of focus on this. A difficult road to hoe, as again, Democrats have still done well in this seat, even though the rural demographics have changed in the state. And then finally, just in terms of kind of one of those seats that people are looking at, Assembly District 94, which is kind of the rural La Crosse area, West Salem, kind of borders the city of La Crosse. It's been held by GOP. The GOP previously was won by Representative Doyle in a special election in 2011. And really ever since that, they put it on a desire list for them to try and flip it. But Representative Doyle has always done quite well in this particular district. I think generally they look at this as a lean GOP seat, but again, last couple of years, Representative Doyle's done really well. The 2018 race, for instance, he won by 55% plus. So again, they're hoping that the GOP's hoping top of the ticket, and maybe a competitive Senate race will help to drive some turnout there to potentially flip it. Just a couple of other seats in terms of the assembly to watch, and not as many competitive seats as there have been previously, but the 21st, the 24th, the 44th, 49th, the 71st district, 82nd, and then the 92nd district would all be ones that potentially, depending on a wave election, could be competitive. But they're, again, the assembly is not as, the seats just aren't as competitive as they were maybe a decade or 2 decades ago. As always, if you have questions about the Rotunda Report or issues that the State Bar is currently lobbying on, we encourage you to feel free to contact us. And just a reminder to please subscribe to the Rotunda Report newsletter at wisbar.org/rotunda. You can also follow us on Twitter or check out our advocacy network. And that is it for the Senate and Assembly elections, and we look forward to seeing you during our next Rotunda Report video edition. Have a nice day.